Steve LeVine from the New America Foundation writes for Foreign Policy magazine, a man who studied the oil industry in some depth, and particularly taking a look now at what's happening in Libya. How many countries are queuing up to get a share of what's underground, both on land and out at sea?
Officially, we have 30 countries that have some form of relationship with Libya pre-existing. That's pre-revolt. I'll bet you can expect that there are going to be a lot more than that in the coming weeks and the coming months. And the latest report are that 5 of those companies are on the ground now attempting to find out what they can bring online and how fast they can bring it up.
They must be desperate because the situation is terribly volatile out there still, if they're prepared to go in and send their workers in while the fighting's still taking place.
Well, there are 2 things going on. The government, the flow of oil fell. It plummeted from 1.6 million barrels a day. The latest report was that it was 50,000 barrels a day, so that's quite a plunge, and the government would like to bring on, in just the coming 2 or 3 months, 500,000 barrels a day. So that means they need to work fast, even though there's the instability, even though they haven't finished off their business with Colonel Gaddafi as yet. It is trouble, but as soon as you heard that Eni, the Italian company, was prepared to go in, the other companies saw that, and they had to get their feet on the ground too. That's why you have this rush.
You mentioned the Italian company. Well, I know that the French are very interested too. The Italians, because of historical reasons, going back many centuries with Libya. The French, perhaps because of more recent events, because they were sort of one of the first movers in trying to get protection for the rebels out there. So are these 2 countries gearing up for a massive fight themselves now?
I don't think so. There was a report that came out in the last few days. It was in a French newspaper, Libération, that in just the first month after the revolt happened, that someone on the rebel side offered the French 35% of the oil output if it backed them militarily. This report has been disputed now by both sides. We don't know who this report came from, who promised this, and even if someone did promise it, it would not behoove the NTC, the rebel government, to honor that. The pre-revolt volume was that the Italians themselves accounted for 25% of all exports. 25% of the oil went to Italy, and the French only accounted for 5%. I think that's going to hold.
Now, what about China and Russia? Both of them desperate to get in there, but neither of those 2 countries has shown much willingness to support the NTC. Are they going to get cold-shouldered now? The reports we're getting, what we would expect. Diplomats, Libyan diplomats, are speaking, and it behooves them to sound reliable. And so what they're saying is, we're going to honor all contracts, all pre-existing contracts, and we will slowly begin to talk about new deals as we get production going. That's the shrewd way to go ahead. You want to appear reliable. You want foreign governments in Europe, the United States, the Middle East to look at you as a reliable partner. However, given that the Chinese, Russia, and the Brazilians were very slow off the mark in backing the rebel side, you know, people aren't going to answer their phone calls at first. They're not going to answer their door. It's going to be hard to get an appointment. Once they get in the door, they have a lot of explaining to do. But the Chinese were a big presence there. The Russians have a long-standing relationship with the Libyans. They will have their deals. The example, I think, is Iraq. These countries did not support the war that brought down Saddam Hussein, but all of them have deals now. I think that will be the model, what we'll see in Libya too. Steve LeVine, thank you.
Thanks very much.